I want to make sure we're live. Oh, it says we're live. There it is, 7 seconds. Great to be with you this morning. We're going to have a very special conversation this morning about some things that I think are so important for all of us to consider. I'm just pulling up a couple of emails from earlier that I sent to myself over the course of the weekend, considering what we'd be discussing today. It really boils down to the word choice. Choice. I've been reflecting on Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Dr. Frankl was in a concentration camp in World War II, survived, an illustrious career as a writer and speaker. Amazing. And in that book is a very famous quote, and then a couple of sentences after that are really critical. Viktor says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, just think about some situations that we get to in life. He was in a concentration camp. He couldn't choose to not be in the concentration camp. That wasn't a choice. So when you can't change the situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Everything can be taken from a man, from a person, but one thing. And that's what we're boiling this conversation down to today. The last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any set of circumstances, to choose one's own destiny, one's way. Now, this is what he went on to say. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. We call this a pivotal moment. We reach this intersection. We've had a stimulus, and normally we respond this way. And we choose today instead to respond this way. It's a little uncomfortable because we're breaking a habit. This is a habit. It's just an automatic response to this stimulus. But we're aware now in this pivotal moment, this space, as Viktor called it, and we're going to choose differently. And if each time we have this stimulus, we choose this response, we'll begin to create a new neural pathway. The brain has neuroplasticity, it's malleable like clay, and we can create a new neural pathway. And when we do, the brain prunes off the old habit, and we've established a new habit. This is the very process of self-improvement. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Self-improvement is not this, what we're doing today. It's not reading a book. It's not watching a podcast. It's not attending a conference. It's not going to a seminar or a speech. It's what happens in this pivotal moment, because everything else is simply preparation to raise our awareness so that in this space, when there's a stimulus, we can choose a different response. Now, this last week has been very interesting, to say the least. When I met with you last Monday, I was nursing a very painful, painful leg and a cough, which I still have a bit of that cough. And by the time Wednesday came, it was just excruciating. I just couldn't do it anymore. I could hardly breathe. I thought maybe I had COVID, and I'd been tested the week before and it was negative. So I went to the Instacare and they examined me and shipped me immediately off the emergency room. The emergency room immediately started doing some tests, starting with a blood test. And that blood test led them to an ultrasound and to a CT scan. And by the time all of that information came in, I have a deep vein thrombosis, a blood clot in my left leg, and it breaks off goes through my heart, causes heart palpitations, and then lodges in my lungs. So there's bilateral pulmonary embolus. That's what was causing the shortness of breath. It was great just to figure it out. They tested me again for COVID, put that thing so far up my nose they tickled my brain. No, they got a great sample, and it turned out to be negative, which was wonderful. Well, I couldn't change those circumstances. I've always been able to. First time in 17 years, I missed a day of work. 17 years. Now, I haven't always felt great, but you just work through it. You just set your mind to it. It's scroll 6. If you don't feel well, you just choose to. You just push through. And this was a circumstance that I couldn't push through. I'd reached the limit. And I've got a pretty high pain threshold. And now the doc says, boy, I'm glad you came in. Blood clot was not going to get better. The thrombosis would have gotten worse. The pulmonary embolism would have gotten worse. And, go down that road very far and you can see what could happen. So they got me under treatment. I stayed in the hospital, got home, been in bed rest for a few days. It's the first thing I'd done. I didn't want to miss this. The rest of the schedule is clear, but I wanted to be with you this morning to explore this moment of choice because I had so much wonderful reflective time. It was 3:00 in the morning, Thursday morning, and I couldn't sleep. My leg was throbbing and was coughing, and I just decided to do the one thing I could do, which was change my attitude. And so I began to reflect on Ramona. And as I reflected on Ramona, I started to play all of the things that had happened in our life from the first time I saw her, which was the second Sunday in October, 1974. I just remembered, I just relived that experience, relived the birth of our children, relived so many wonderful family memories, the time we've spent together. It was just incredible. And I found myself sobbing uncontrollably, not from pain, but from joy. And it's interesting that went on for about an hour and a half or so. And I drifted off to sleep and woke up the next morning, and I was already feeling a little better from the medication they had me on. And I thought, isn't that interesting? To choose that kind of a moment in the middle of the pain, and it helped take my mind off of those things that I could not control, right? I couldn't control them. My body needed to work through this. That I could. Then I had this epiphany. We look at the scrolls, the 10 scrolls written by OgMent, found in the greatest salesman in the world, and we think about them. And incredible piece of literature, all written in one night, unlimited application, unlimited interpretation, language of the intrinsic. We think about them in terms of powerful principles, changing habits. And I saw them differently this last week. I saw them as simply choices. Choices. Scroll 1, my choice. I can remain imprisoned to my unhealthy habits, or I can make the choice to change those habits. Scroll 2, I can live in hate and fear, or I can choose to live in love, agape love. I'll take my enemies and turn them into friends, and friends into brothers. I'll look for good instead of scratching for gossip. Those are choices. I'll love everyone, and most of all, I'll love myself. I will choose to zealously guard what I take into my body, my heart, my mind, my soul. It's all about choice. Do I choose to love, or do I choose to hate? Scroll 3, do I choose to let life get the best of me? Or as Og said, do I choose to work on, if I get despair, I'll work on in despair. I'll work and I'll toil. I'll ignore the obstacles at my feet. I'll keep my eye on the goal above my head. For where dry desert ends, green grass grows. That's a choice. We make that choice. I choose to ride out the wrath of the storm, to learn my skill set as the mariner does his. I choose to do one more thing at the end of each day so that it ends with a success. To choose one small act at a time can accomplish any deed. Scroll 4, I choose to embrace my uniqueness. I choose to take what I have and create the most I can with it. I choose to keep my business and my life separated, divorced from both, thus I remain wedded to both. The paradox of the ages. I think not of my family when I'm in my business, that will cloud my thoughts. I'll think not of my business when I'm with my family, that will dampen my love. These are choices. And when Viktor Frankl tells us that this is the last of the freedoms, isn't that cool? This is the last. Everything can be taken from us, but this last of the freedoms, to choose our attitude in any given circumstance. Look at scroll 5. I choose to live this day as if it is my last. I choose not to worry about tomorrow. I choose not to burden myself with the past. The choice. Scroll 6, I choose to be the master of my emotions. Others do not know the secret of controlling their mind. They get the stimulus, they've got an automatic response. They haven't learned to step back and reflect on this space called metacognition, this awareness moment. They're not improving themselves in the sense of preparing themselves for those moments. They don't know how to do this. I do, and I choose to. And when things go crazy, scroll 7, I choose to laugh. I choose to say, this too shall pass. I choose to learn from the experience. I choose to have an empathetic reference point, and I remain healthy. Scroll 8, I choose to multiply my value 100-fold, not to work harder, not to focus any longer on how long I work, how hard I work, how busy I am. Og made it clear, until I have objectives, my life will not crystallize. And crystallize means to bring substance, definition to something. I can't define my life without an objective. The objective is not the goal. The objective is what I'm going to create, the result I'm going to create. And once I've got objectives, then I can set goals. But I choose to live this way, and I will multiply my value 100-fold. May I work hard? Perhaps. May I work long? Perhaps. May I be busy? Perhaps. But it won't be about any of those. It'll be about accomplishing that objective. That's a choice. Scroll 9, I choose to act now. I choose to be the firefly, not the butterfly who preens its wings and depends on welfare, the charity of others. I choose to be the firefly, and my light will be seen even in the brightness of the day. I will act now. I will walk where the failure fears to walk. I will talk when the failure remains silent. I will work when the failure seeks rest. These are choices. And then he sums it up with that incredible sentence at the end. I will command, and I will obey my own command. Is that the most ultimate statement about choice? I will command, and I will obey my own command. I am not going to be imprisoned. I'm going to be free. I'm going to have the freedom of being able to make these choices. And scroll 10, I'm no longer going to seek for gold or garments. I'm going to seek to acquire ability equal to the opportunities that are before me. Those other things will come, but only as I have the ability to act on them, right? The 10 scrolls, we could call them the 10 choices. The 10 choices we'll want to make in our life. So take a look at your life today and say, okay, are there things that are out of your control? There may be. I shared mine not for sympathy, just to make the point. There are times when we cannot control what's happening. We can only choose to control how we show up in it, our attitude. There are other circumstances where we can just choose differently. This weekend, our new little puppy dog, our Labradoodle, who's no longer a little puppy dog, got diarrhea. Oh my goodness. Saturday night, on top of Ramona taking care of me, this puppy dog had to go out 4 times. Bless his heart, it would be whining and she would get up and take it out. I got up about 5 o'clock, decided to take her out to the yard and turned her loose on the neighbor's sprinklers. And then she ran over and played in our sprinklers and just had a great time for a couple hours. Well, I had my foot up on a reclining chair and just played with her. Let Ramona get some sleep. What was amazing, got the dog all dried off and brought back in and settled down, and Ramona got up and she came in, and first thing she said was, "I apologize if I seemed ornery last night. I realized I need to make a choice." She actually said this. "I'm going to choose a different attitude about the dog because it's worn me out thinking the way I'm currently thinking. The poor thing's not well. It needs support. Now, it's not like deathly ill. It's just got diarrhea, but it doesn't feel very good with diarrhea. But she's choosing a different attitude about the dog, and she took the dog on a long hike and came back, and the dog was so calm the rest of the day. Fed her some boiled chicken and a little scrambled eggs per the veterinarian, just to calm her stomach down a little bit, and hopefully she'll be all right. Just think about your life circumstances. It could be as simple as the dog's got diarrhea. What's our choice? Again? Or is it, poor thing, come here, let me serve you? It could be an illness that you're struggling with. It could be a financial setback. It could be a relationship challenge. Some things we cannot change. We can only change how we choose to show up in that moment. That's the last of our freedoms. Whatever we do, let us not surrender that freedom. Okay, everybody, thank you. It's been wonderful to be with you this morning. Wish you the very best. May you go back in and spend a few minutes with the scrolls this week and just read them as I choose to. So I choose to, and see how empowering that thought is, because that's really what OG's giving us, choices. And let's enjoy this. Thanks, everyone.